Hey guys, how you doing? It's Ray here, the gray-haired guy in a gi. I got a great guest. It's my 20th episode today, and so I was able to track down John Foster. So it's awesome. John, welcome, man. It's great to see you.
Thanks for having me, Ray.
I
Appreciate it,
know
buddy.
you're so exceptionally busy, and I do appreciate your time. I usually start with, what are you currently doing? But for you, because that's a trick question, because you're so busy.
Yeah,
We're going to get
yeah.
into all that. Let's go back. So, are you from Truro originally? Or,
I'm from
sorry,
Newfoundland
from the
originally.
Valley?
I'm from Newfoundland originally, but I've been in the valley now for I think probably 20 years,
Okay.
maybe even a little longer, 21, 22 years, something like that. But moved around a bunch of a kid as a kid. I was born in Newfoundland, finished high school in Newfoundland, and then after a brief stint out west, like every other person that graduates high school in Newfoundland, I landed in Nova Scotia, and I've been here ever since.
Right. Always just down. And whereabouts in the Valley are you?
I'm in a little place called Canaan, which is just up from New Minas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stayed there before in a bed and breakfast. Beautiful down there.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Wine country.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's absolutely beautiful. So listen, were you like a kung fu guy when you were a kid, or like when'd you first start martial arts?
Man, not even. I grew up playing all the traditional sports, I did baseball, soccer, I swam, I played hockey, of course, and even football for a little bit. Did all kinds of traditional sports. There just really wasn't anything around when I was growing up. And then when I was in college, I guess it would have been 19 or 20, I started doing some boxing out in Middleton. I ended up going to NSCC and did graphic design
Oh,
back
wow.
in the day. Yeah. So I was boxing with McCabe's, Brian McCabe, and then Bruce Harkness, and he's Bruce is still teaching boxing out there. But I did some boxing with those guys when I was in college, and then after college, I didn't really do anything, and then it's kind of a ridiculous origin story. A buddy of mine, we used to have like the Pride DVDs. So we watched the old Pride fighting, right? Which was, as you know, just like
The best.
hardcore, man. Yeah.
It's the best.
About as
Still to
best,
this
yeah,
day.
about as good as it gets. Yeah, exactly. So we were watching those, and then that led to us, of course, fighting each other in the backyard. And he'd picked up a couple moves off the internet, and he used to always catch me with them. It was a Kimura and a couple things. I know what they are now, but he was in the military, and he left. He would leave on the ship for months at a time. And my brother said, "I think there's a place up in Wolfville that teaches this stuff." I said, "Oh, really?" With the intent only of beating my friend Mark in the yard. So I joined, and it was when Abaya was in Wolfville. Um, there was a house up by Acadia there that had a space, and they were doing jujitsu there. So I joined up, and basically the rest is history. A couple months later, the gym moved to the location we're still in to this day. Um, I guess 18 years later, and a couple years after that, I took over from Patrick when he decided to sell, and yeah, man, I've been there ever since. So I was really when I was 24 when I got into jiu-jitsu and went steady with the martial arts, and I'll be 42 now in a few weeks. So
Yeah.
that's
So
where I'm at, man.
what's the story behind Abaya?
So Bio was started by Patrick Bazinet, Rowan Cunningham, and Babs Wright was also involved as well. Her and Patrick were married at the time, and they were in Ontario training with Jeff Jocelyn. They decided they literally just kind of pointed to a map and said, "Let's move here and start a
Oh,
gym."
wow.
Yeah, and they ended up in the valley, and but I was in a few different places. It was in the Michelin Club. It
In a
was in
karate club too, wasn't it, for a bit?
yeah, in Kentville up in the Karate Club, and it was in New Minas, um, in just a little space there, by right by where my commercial gym is, Motive Fitness, in that spot, and then down to Wolfville. It was like I don't know what you call it, like one of these like private schools is what it was, but it was a house converted into a private school, and they had like
Right.
a gym space. It wasn't big. I don't know what the mat space would have been, maybe 600 square feet, maybe 400 square feet, not very much.
No.
And that's where I started. And then the building we're in now, and we've been in forever, is in Greenwich. So that place was retrofitted for Abaya back in the day. and then moved there and been there ever since. So now we've got the mat space and the cage and all that I put in after I took over. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Rowan moved back to Ontario to teach at the Adrenaline School up there with with Sam Stout and Mark Hominick and them after a couple of years of being in the valley. And then Patrick ran it for I guess about a year by himself. And then it was it was almost my second year of training, and he decided he wanted to sell and move on to other things.
Yeah.
And I just kind of was in love with it at that point. I remember starting out and saying, "Oh, I'll learn some moves, but I'll probably never learn the names of the moves or anything." And then, here we are, still going steady, and
Well, yeah, for
all these
sure.
years later, right? So yeah, I mean, I was, about 26, and Pat wanted to sell, and I jumped on it, and here we are, man. And now I'm a black belt. I've got a bunch of my own black belts.
Yep.
Abaya is still going strong, right?
Oh yeah, we're going to get into all the great things that Abaya, you yourself, and Abaya created over these years. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. And I remember, we met so many years ago, especially with all your guys, Steve Greencorn, and all those guys. And there used to be a lot of interaction between different clubs and stuff. So
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
and now you were the only Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school down that way, and now there's a couple, correct?
Yeah, exactly. We have a second gym in Windsor, the Abaya
Yep.
Academy in Windsor, run by Chris Robinson.
Yeah, good guy.
If you know, great guy, black belt in judo, black belt in jiu-jitsu. And then
He's
there's
on my
another one
list
up.
too.
Ah, he should be. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
absolutely. He's been around forever. And then there's another school up in Melbourne Square, which actually was an Abaya school, um, with Hoyles Whiting. I had started years ago, but he ended up selling it to someone else and moving away, and then took us away from being an Abaya Academy. But
Right.
yeah, so there is a couple up here now, but we're still doing our thing, and we're the only school that does everything because we do kickboxing and boxing and mixed martial arts. We have a bunch of active fighters and compete on the FLA shows and wherever else. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Hard to believe we have 103 black belts now in Nova Scotia.
yeah, that's
Isn't that
wild because
crazy? Like,
I
especially when you
remember when I
started.
started, it was like, yeah, there was a couple black belts being like Martel and Kevin and those guys. And then if you went to a tournament and saw a blue belt, it was like, holy shit, this guy's a blue belt. We're fucking dead. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
pretty much, right? So, yeah, man, it's come so far, and I don't know how many schools there are. I mean, there's
Oh,
probably
I
about 40,
know.
50
So I
schools within
know
the Maritimes.
back in the day, I mean, obviously when you guys were starting, you guys were the only ones in the Valley area. We had
Yeah,
Peter and Kevin, of course, Fit Plus, my old club, Bushido Kai.
yeah,
Obviously,
Marmac.
there's some guys in Truro, Marmac, and Ken Peters eventually got going in Sydney, Cape Breton. And I'm sure there's a few little, I mean, we're talking like a long time, like 2007, 2008, right? But
Yeah,
now there's 37 Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu clubs in the province. Now
just in
that
Nova
also could
Scotia.
mean like part-time classes, like someone who trains twice a week or has a
Yeah,
club somewhere in a rec center. But 37. It's
yeah,
amazing.
it's amazing. It really is because there always was. There's only like five or six big clubs back in the day,
Yeah.
and then yeah, and we've seen a ton of growth just since we've been promoting um, MMA throughout the Maritimes. There's always there's new schools popping up in PEI, New Brunswick, and all over Nova Scotia. Just having an avenue to compete in has been a big part of that. And guys will tell us like guys want to fight, and now they can, and now they're here
Yeah.
to train, kind of thing, right? So
Oh yeah, for sure. So
yeah,
still staying back in the early days,
hmm
the gym that you're in now, of course, you guys had that, but you had like half of it or something, right?
we've had the majority of the building, but there was a
Right.
backspace that we had. There
Okay.
was a climbing gym back there for years, and now I've got the outdoor store back there. So I
Yeah.
I ended up buying the building
That's what I was going to get to. Eventually,
years ago.
started out,
Yeah,
you had kind of half of it or most of it, and then you took over the whole thing.
exactly.
Uh,
Yeah,
and you decided to build a climbing gym in it.
yeah, exactly. So it's basically an old warehouse. It's not a giant warehouse. I don't know how many square feet it is, 6 or 8 thousand, I guess.
Ah,
But
it's awesome though.
yeah, but it is separated. So Baya's about two-thirds of it up front, and then out back was a separate space. I mean, since I've took over, we right away expanded the mats, put in an MMA cage, built a bigger overhang upstairs so we could move the weights and stuff up there and have like a viewing area. And then
Yeah.
out in the back of the building, they used to like park their vans in there, their armored vans. And then when I bought the building, exactly, I took the garage doors out and put a climbing gym in, ran that for 8 or 9 years with my buddy Pete Campbell, and then who's also old school martial artist, been around forever doing it in Nova Scotia. And then yeah, during COVID, we just shut that down because, as you know, we weren't allowed to exercise
Yeah.
and make money or anything else. So shut that down and then built the outdoor store Wild Valley, and we're going into our 5th year here now with that. So
Okay.
yeah,
So
it's
do you
been a
still
lot of
have the
change,
climbing
man.
gym?
No, it's gone. We tore the
Okay.
climbing gym out to build the store. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
So I guess we'll jump ahead because really, honestly, your
yeah.
evolution with what you've been doing, it's for people who do. I joke that, no offense, you're like the who's that guy that owns Virgin Atlantic?
Oh,
Uh,
very good.
yeah, you're like the Jeff Bezos of the Valley.
Yeah,
And I don't mean like shooting stuff into space. I mean, you have so many things going on. I tried to remember last night. I mean, I know you do. You know, obviously we'll talk about FLA, but you do tattooing, you had the climbing gym, you have an outdoors type of shop, you do stand-up comedy, you train fight. I mean, I guess the biggest question is, where do you find time?
yeah. I mean, compartmentalized, and I have a lot of great staff, man.
Yeah. And we
It's
talk about your other gym that you own too. So
yeah. No, I've always had a bunch of things going on. I mean, Abaya has really been the one constant. Like I've had Abaya now, like I said, I've been running that place for 16 years this
runs
June.
itself now.
Well, yeah, we have obviously a lot of great instructors, but because it's evenings and weekends, instead of just doing nothing during my days, I've started and ran and been part of probably 15 or 20 other businesses at this point
Yep.
on the side. And same thing now. I've got a bunch of things going on. Like I mentioned, we've got, the Bio Greenwich and the Bio Windsor. Bio Windsor, I mean, Chris runs that. That's pretty hands off for me. Um, and then we've got the Moda Fitness Gym, which is
So
a
what's the
commercial
story
gym.
behind that? Because I've been to that gym before, the older, I can't remember the name of it before, but
Yeah, it used to be Absolute Health Club.
that's right.
Yeah, I took over just shy of 8 years ago. We rebranded and obviously made a bunch of upgrades and that to that facility. But I mean, long story short, one of my buddies at Abaya was like, "Hey, man, the gym's for sale. It'll be mine. That you should buy it." And I was like, "I should buy it." And I'd
Yeah.
gotten out of clinical research. I was working in clinical research. I owned part of a company in that for 5 years, and I was kind of done with that. So I parlayed into buying this gym, and been running that ever since, which obviously is a great complement to just physical fitness and strength and conditioning with Abaya. And then we took the climb wall down, built the outdoor store. We got that going, and then it's like, well, I was kind of well. I mean, as you remember, we used to do the Abaya Open, the
Oh
jiu-jitsu
yeah, we're going to
tournaments.
talk about that. That's a whole topic too.
Yeah, but I did that for 10 years, and then I was done with that. And I talked to Derek. I hit up Derek. I said, we should get into MMA, and he said, I'm already doing it. Let's do it. So FLA was born, and here we are now. I kind of just do the five things. I don't tattoo very much anymore.
Okay.
I do dabble in comedy when I can fit it in. But
Yeah.
nice thing about comedy is I can practice it while I'm driving or doing whatever. So
Yeah.
it works out. And I mean, the fact is, I just have too many interests, man. Like,
Of course.
I love to fish. I'd like to be outdoors all the time if I could be. And I just I'm one of those guys. If I'm into something or like the idea of something, and I can figure it out logistically, I'm gonna just do it. And I like to scare the shit out of myself. I don't fight anymore, so comedy kind of replaced that, man. Like you prepare for something, you get nervous, you do it. Afterwards, you feel great, and it's a good
Yeah,
time, and you're not beat to shit. So it's
exactly.
got
So
some
for people who
perks.
don't know, obviously you have your gym, but you also have a fitness gym. People can go lift
Yeah,
weights, do cardio, all that stuff, right? Kind of like
yeah, it's
not
a
a
full
fit for
fitness
less, but
facility.
very similar. So
No, it's much bigger than a Fit for Less.
yeah.
We've got a bit of everything in there. It's 12,000 square feet. Um, So we've got everything for athletes all the way to senior citizens, and everyone in between
Yeah.
for whatever kind of training you're looking to do. We've got all the equipment. We've got strength and conditioning coaches and all that good stuff, man.
Let's jump back then to one of the most nostalgic tournaments in Nova Scotia ever. It'll still go down in the history books as a Abaya MMA, like a Abaya Open. Like
Yeah.
so many original Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts got their start there. Let's talk about that history just for, a few minutes.
Yeah, I mean the Abaya Open started, well, I ran it for 10 years. So I think it was 2009 to 2019.
Yeah.
We started it off, we always ran it in April, if you recall.
Yeah.
It was always in April, and originally, man, it was a tournament put on, and it basically bridged the gap for the summer months at Abaya when the gym would get slow. Me and Patrick used to run an apparel company, Abaya Apparel, so the first one was actually put on by me and him together, and it was sponsored by our apparel company, and we used to sell T-shirts and that for a while, and then yeah, we just kept it going and kept growing, and we were one of the first to ever book a real venue,
Yep.
not just running out of our gym. We had I think the first one we had two mats running maybe, and then by the end of it we'd run six. We'd
Yep.
run six mats all day. We had our own website, our own online registration before Smooth Comp. We did all
Yep.
this stuff, and we used to have people come from all over. I remember one year it was just huge all of a sudden. Like, we'd picked along for a few years, and then one year it was just packed. I think we had, 160 or 180 competitors, which was unheard of back in those days.
Everybody
Um,
looked forward to that tournament. It was
yeah, it became a big thing, and the
it was
numbers got a lot bigger than that, even, right? And
yeah.
the beauty of it was we were able to have like blue belt divisions, and masters divisions, white belt divisions, and white belt masters divisions, all the way up to brown and black belt divisions before that was really even possible anywhere else. We finally got the numbers that we could make all these great brackets. We were the first ones to do kids divisions. And I remember the first year it was all my kids, all
Yeah.
students from my school. I think it was 20 some Abaya kids. And then the next year it was about 50-50. Like other schools started seeing what was going on. And we're like, these kids are amazing. Let's start doing this. And yeah, it kind of grew from there. And now, I mean, when you go to the jiu-jitsu tournaments, there's like 100 kids there. It's
Well,
crazy. It's like
that's
50-50.
obviously there's now the tournaments have grown so much, and we can quickly
Yeah.
chat about that. And obviously, Submission Series Atlantic's fairly huge, and there's lots going on. What do you think? What do you think of the explosion of tournaments? Is there too many? Is there not enough? Are they doing all right? I mean,
Yeah, it's
generally your
definitely
thoughts.
different, man. I truly believe the heyday of the tournament scene here was when you had the Abaya Open, and then there was the Fit Plus tournament, and there was generally a Titans tournament, and then there was Derek's tournament, whether it was the Nova Scotia Open or Chokes by the Ocean, and you kind
Yeah.
of had that circuit, once a month there or so. You had these big tournaments, and everyone went to, and we had great brackets. And then, I mean, one of the reasons I went into MMA was because the tournament scene got a bit watered down. When there's so many tournaments, it's impossible for every tournament to have the numbers to have great brackets. So we started to
Right.
see a lot of times people show up, there'd be no one in the division, there'd be one person in the division. And there's still quite a bit of that going on now. Like I've brought kids up to the tournament recently, and half of them are doing round robin against one other kid, and it costs $110 or whatever for your 8-year-old to do a couple
Yeah, that's true.
couple matches. So it's a lot more expensive, and it's a lot more watered down as far as the brackets go. But the smooth comp system that everyone uses now is awesome. I will say, like, that's great. It's very well
They
organized,
never
runs
had that back
smoothly.
when you guys were doing it.
Didn't exist, man. I mean, I put up a website and I would start doing, well, back in the day, everyone would show up and then we'd write the brackets after they got there.
That's
For,
right.
which became 2 or 3 hours of writing out brackets on the fly. And then, I started doing the online thing with PayPal registration. I'd have all the brackets done up manually myself, and then I'd post them in the later years of the tournament, and that worked great. But then, yeah, like Smooth Comp came along. I think Derek was probably one of the first people to utilize that and have the monitors up and everything. But I don't know. I mean, the SAA tournaments are very well run. You know, they are expensive. They are, you know, there is a lot of brackets. Some of the other smaller ones, some of the guys at New Brunswick, I mean, I'm sure they're doing a great
That's
job too.
exploded too, New Brunswick. So I mean, people
New
can
Brunswick's
travel
exploded.
3-4 hours and do another tournament. It's
Yeah. And back in the day, man, like New Brunswick was not like Nova Scotia was miles ahead of New Brunswick. Um, and they've done a great job of just catching up and growing the scene and also developing, you know, their athletic commissions and everything else up there, which, you know, was kind of the Wild West for
yeah,
a
that's
while.
a whole podcast in itself, dealing with boxing
Mhm.
commissions. I've dealt with them a
Yeah.
lot too. You've dealt with them way more than me, but yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I mean that was it. Like, you know, when I got out of doing the tournament, you know, we really grew. And then, you know, the last year I found it was just getting watered down. We saw the numbers were down quite a bit. And I just felt like it was time to move on to something else. And MMA is something I always wanted to do. You know, I almost did it in the past, and then the timing was right. Derek was into the idea, and if you remember it, you obviously remember Submission Series Pro. I mean, Derek was one of the pioneers
100%.
of, yeah,
He's on my
you know,
list too.
he should be, yeah.
Oh
He's one of the
yeah.
first guys to do jiu-jitsu shows everywhere. I mean, he invented tapper tag. He did a bunch of things and really put submission grappling on this on the map up here, and you know, bringing guys in from all over to compete against the locals and
Absolutely.
you know everything about it. I mean, I think it was Metamoris and then him, and then you know he was very early on in that. So with his promotion experience and you know just my business and organizational skills, we were able to put together FLA, and now FLA's
Before
pumping.
we move
So
into FLA, I'm just looking at my phone here. Have you heard of Twin Cities Jiu Jitsu Open? It just popped up on Instagram just like about a week ago. It's supposed to be combat jiu-jitsu style coming to Halifax with prize money.
first I've heard of
Okay, good. Yeah, first here. First John.
that. You heard it
So
here first, folks.
it's on Instagram. They only have about 66 followers. I don't know anything about it yet. I'm trying to figure out,
I'd be
you
very
know,
curious to see who's putting
and
that together.
some people who work in the, MMA community as well. It's like, well, if there's striking involved, there's going to be boxing commission involved. But I don't know anything else about it. I'll keep you updated whenever I hear more. But it's supposed to be combat jiu-jitsu style invitational with cash prizes coming to Halifax. I don't know if this is a fake account or what. So
I mean, something like that would be very cool if they could pull it off. Um, if they're going to do it legitimately, I'd be very surprised. You know, there's, you know, I don't know if open palm
yeah,
counts as striking. I mean, you
could
can
be just
slap the
some
shit out
guys
of
in a
someone,
club.
no
Hey, let's
question.
just get together in the club and we'll slap each other and
Yeah, yeah,
roll around.
exactly. But yeah, good luck to them. I'm sure there'd be a scene for that. I mean, there's a lot of guys. I mean, I keep talking about MMA, but just because I'm so involved with it now.
Yep, well, yeah, for sure.
But it's you know, it's like a lot of guys don't want to jump all the way to even amateur MMA. Like amateur MMA these days is such a big deal. There's such a lead up. There's such, you know, such amount of preparation. The level's so high. So jiu-jitsu tournaments, you know, amateur kickboxing, amateur boxing, um, any wrestling tournaments you could do, or something like you know slap fight and jiu-jitsu. Um, you know, it's great experience leading up to that, and the more stuff like that that's around that can kind of segue people into mixed martial arts, and I think it's great if it
Yeah.
works and it's done properly. But there's a lot of people out there that just think they're going to throw up a tournament or an event, and they don't understand the amount of logistics and effort and money it takes. You know, the amount of times I've been told someone's going to start a promotion in MMA, like, oh, so and so started a promotion. I'm like, go for it,
Yeah. Sounds like Dana
fill your
White.
boots. Yeah.
Go ahead. You want to do it? Do it. I mean,
Yeah, if you like losing money, go for it. Like it's not
exactly.
easy, it's expensive, and there's a hell of a lot of moving parts. So
So let's get into it. Let's get in real quick now to that because obviously we know Extreme Cage Combat ECC was around, and then Nova Kickboxing was around for a while, and then it sort of became Atlanta Combat Sports, and honestly, they're not really around doing much anymore at all. And then all of a sudden, Fight League Atlanta came up, and I've been to a couple of your events, and they're just, I mean, all the MMA shows were great, but your guys was just amazing, like just so well run. You guys invest so much time, so much money, so much production, and especially the one I saw at the Dartmouth Sportsplex was just incredible.
Yeah, that
So
was a good show.
yeah, so both you and Derek, just amazing. And obviously you've been
Yeah.
involved with that. I've been involved with it with fighters and training people and stuff. But so what made you decide just to go MMA? Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, MMA has always been the big interest for me. Like, back in the day, I was a fighter and I've been a coach forever. Took part in, man, shows all over the Maritimes, right? The Cage Rage, Elite One, and ECC,
Yeah.
excuse me, fighting in Lions halls and bars and every spot possible. Um, and then, yeah, I mean, there was kind of a lull. Like New Brunswick got shut down because of the way, like it used to run under the Wrestling Commission, which was kind of a gray area. Nova Scotia didn't have events for a while. And it just was good, it felt like the scene needed something. Um, I think I'm not even sure if ECC has done a show since we started up, and then they, like you said, became Nova Kickboxing, and then we were fighting League Atlantic, and all of a sudden they became Atlantic Combat Sports, and it was like, okay.
Yeah, Nova
Um,
Kickboxing was just so everyone, so no one corrects me. They were separate. That was the kickboxing event. Ryan Staples and Kevin Thibodeau or Tebow, they ran Nova Kickboxing, and then Kevin retired.
Atlantic Combat Sports
Yeah, and
was
then Peter
Ryan
and
and
Ryan
Peter.
Staples became Atlantic Combat Sports, but I think that's done now too, but I'm not 100% sure. So, but anyway,
Yeah, I'm
Fight
not
League
100%
Atlantic
sure
is
either.
going.
Yeah, we're going, Elite One. We thought Elite One was going to keep going, and they decided not to. And then, yeah, Atlantic Combat Sports. I mean, they did a few shows since we've been around, but we're basically just building the scene now, and we're trying to do it basically at the highest level we can, man. I mean, we
Yep.
put a lot of money into production, as you've seen. We just finished our 19th show up in the Moncton Coliseum, which I think arguably was probably our best show. Everything went really well. We had great fights, great production. We added some more production elements to that show that really made a difference. And yeah, we're back at the Dartmouth Sportsplex actually in June
Yeah,
for
looking
FLA
forward to that.
20. So it's a landmark show. We're working on some big fights for that one, and yeah, it really just felt like a good time. Like I said, that's been my main interest. If I'm going to pick grappling or MMA, it's going to be MMA. It's more risk, more reward, I guess, on the other side of things. And we've been fortunate. We're able to just keep pushing the ball forward.
Right.
Um, and we're just trying to do it on a bigger level than it's ever been done around here. And I feel like we're doing that, and I feel like it's you know
100%.
it's growing, and we're developing tons of talent. I don't know how many fights we've done at this point, but it's got to be in the hundreds. You know what I mean?
Yep.
19 shows with anywhere from 6 to 12 fights per show, and we've seen a lot of guys come out of nowhere as amateurs, fight a few times as amateurs, turn pro, and now guys like Abdel Abdelaziz are 7-0 professionals on
Yeah,
on
you
the
guys are
cusp of the
building them
UFC.
up. It's great.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the whole point. And you know, there is guys that fight each other locally, but a lot of times we're bringing fighters in from Mexico or Alberta or Ontario or somewhere in the United States to fight these local guys. And time again, we're proving that the local scene is at that level, and we're turning away competition, by defeating them. So it's awesome to see, man, and it's great that we get to keep doing it. We're in our, I mean, we did our first show, and then friggin' COVID happened.
Yeah.
That was another thing with the jiu-jitsu tournament. Like I'd done 2019, 2020. I'd be geared up to do another show, and COVID hit, and everything at the same time. But we did one MMA show. COVID happened. Man, we scrambled for about a year and a half. Just we started the Kumite, the grappling shows, because no commission, right?
Yeah.
So we could get away with
Exactly.
those. The commission wasn't running anything for a while, and now we got going again, and we're 19 shows deep. So not including the grappling shows. I think we're 25, 26, 27 shows if you count the grappling shows. So it takes a massive team, and we're fortunate. We've got a bunch of people that have been with us from the start, and a bunch of people that keep helping out and all
Yep.
that. But yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know
no,
what
it's
to say
just
about
it's
it.
that's an amazing event, amazing production. And obviously the more you guys do it, it'll be recognized everywhere even more, which is awesome, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's great following the local fighters, seeing them come up and like, oh, where did this guy start off at? Oh, he trains at this school and working his way up. And some people they got belts and now you're signing people too. How does that basically work?
Yeah, we've got a bunch of athletes we've signed. Like once the guys turn pro, um, we sign multi-fight contracts with select guys, and that
Yeah.
just means that they fight for us only.
Okay. Yeah.
So they're
Good.
under contract for several fights with us, and that allows us basically to put more behind them. You know what I mean? If I put a bunch of money into developing somebody and getting them fights, and then they leave, um, that's I shouldn't say that's a problem. Like our ultimate goal is to push guys to the next level, and I'm sure you've seen some of our multi-fight guys go fight in other places, but that's a discussion we have, and if it's a good opportunity,
Of
we say,
course.
yeah, do it, right? Like that's the ultimate goal is to develop Atlantic Canada talent and push them to maybe it's the UFC or Bellator or one or wherever it is. That's what we're trying to do with the multi-fight guys. Those are guys that we're basically putting all our chips behind and we're planning 2, 3, 4 fights ahead with these guys and trying to just build them up to the next level and those are the guys we're really investing in and we've got a pile of them on the roster now, so
Right. Yeah,
it's
that's
good. Yeah.
amazing. And I'm sure you could write a book on how to deal with the boxing commission. They're not saying, I mean, they're, not saying anything negative. I mean, they're exceptionally busy and they do a great job too. But I know from working with Nova Kickboxing and helping them do a couple shows that, there's a lot of work to put on an MMA show or a kickboxing
Yeah.
event or anything. It's a tremendous amount of stress for you and, Derek and for everybody. And, right up to the
Hmm.
very second the person walks in the cage, you're
Yeah,
under pressure.
absolutely. I mean, it's highly regulated. It has to be. It is fighting after all. There's all the medical requirements, of course, and the
Yeah.
licensing and everything that goes through. I mean, there's insurance and ambulances and everything involved, which all is in place. Everything is in place, and just to try to make sure everyone's safe. It's all about fighter safety and athlete safety.
Yeah.
Um, the commissions, I mean, these guys are doing their job. Like I know when we started off, there was a lot different attitude between the promoters and the commission, and that was from basically promoters in the past and how they work with the commission. We've had a great relationship with both Nova Scotia and New Brunswick that we've developed over the last few years, and it certainly makes things a lot easier.
Sure.
Um, we try to make their life easy, and they try to make sure we have successful and safe events. And yeah, it's been going really well. But yeah, I think there's a lot more to it than people do realize. The
Oh,
regulation, everyone
100%
likes
there
the
is.
idea
Yeah.
of starting a promotion, but then once you get into it and you see just the fees and all the little details and dots that need to, I's that need to be dotted and T's that need to be crossed. Um, it becomes a lot more difficult. But like I said, we've done it so many times now, and that's just what I tell myself a lot. They're like, why am I worried? This is our 18th show. This is our 19th show. Our
Yep.
first show was fucking brutal. Trying to get to that point where they, started that first fight. We didn't sleep that whole weekend. We were up till I think 6 a.m. getting the cage and the venue set up the night
Oh, yeah.
before. It's wild. But now we've got an awesome team and we go in and bang the whole thing out and it's better than ever. So
And then you get ready for the next one.
hey, right on to the next
Yeah.
one.
That's
The
what
next
Dana
one
White
is
says in all his interviews. Right
yeah,
after a big UFC, the next day they're in the office. Let's go. What's the next one? And
yeah, we're literally putting cards together, 2, 3, 4 cards in advance now. So when
yeah.
19 happened, 20 is already half signed, and the promotions and the works and the graphics and everything else, and it just it just
Yeah.
goes right. And as you know, we do 5 a year now. We did 6 one year, and it was just too much. Got a little bit. It just thinned it out a little bit too much in the spring. It's trying to see what the market can sustain really, and this 5 show schedule because we're tossed up between trying to keep the fighters busy enough. And there's a lot of fighters now that want fights and need fights. And spreading ourselves so thin that you just don't sell tickets. You know, we have to sell a lot
Right.
of tickets just to break even on these shows. And that's the thing. Like, we need to be able to sustain this. So if we're going to keep pushing it ahead, we need to make sure
Do you find
every
that,
show.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
No, it's good.
Do you do you get a lot of applications, or do you find it like tricky to find fighters in the local area?
Um, Not really. I mean, sometimes matchmaking can be very difficult just
Yeah,
because so and so doesn't want to fight so and so because they're friends, or so and
right.
so doesn't want to fight so and so because they got more experience on the ground, or whatever it may be.
Sure.
Matchmaking is probably the most difficult job in promoting. Um, I would say that is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
And we do get a lot of applications. We have a registry form on our website. We literally have a database, a spreadsheet database of got hundreds of fighters on it now, from all over the place. And then we're tightly connected with every club basically in the Maritimes, and
Yeah.
Derek's network from Submission Series Pro and beyond,
Huge.
is nationwide. You know what I mean? It's all Canada. It's all U.S. So we're connected with a ton of good people, and it's the snowball effect too, right? Like, we work with gyms out of Mexico and out of Alberta and Ontario and Saskatchewan, and then they'll be like, "Hey, we had a great experience fighting for you guys. I've got another guy. Can I bring down two fighters this time?" And then go, "Well, now we match up two local guys against two people from here."
Yeah.
So it works out like that. But yeah, the matchmaking is probably the biggest struggle. But we've like I said, we've got our registry we've been putting together. We do get applications on the regular, and then we're connected to the local scene, and a lot of the coaches are guys that we've been friends with now for 20 years or 15 years, right?
Right.
So
That's awesome. Would you
yeah,
when do you do I only got a couple more quick questions, but
yeah, no
when do you
worries.
get back to jujitsu? When do you find time for that now? You still obviously you're training, but
Yep, I still
you
train.
get
I
on the
still
mats and
teach.
roll around.
Yeah, I'm still down to Abaya at least 2 or 3 nights a week.
Good.
Yeah, I still teach boxing. I still teach jujitsu. I always make the open mat on Thursday, so I get a bunch of sparring in. And I try not to get hit in the head too much anymore now that I'm in my
Of
40s.
course.
But I do grapple every week still, and yeah, I don't know. I still love it, and
I
I
mean, you're
mostly
so
teach the
busy, right?
kids.
You got so many other projects on the go. So, you know,
Yeah, oh yeah. There's only so much for me to go around, and of course, I got my own family and stuff too. I don't want to be
yeah,
gone constantly, right? But my boys have been training jujitsu with me since they were three. My youngest turned 9 today, and my oldest fella's actually about to age out of it. He'll be 14 in August, and our kids program only goes to 13.
yeah,
So they've been in it, their whole life, and yeah, I mean, our kids program is a big part of our school. So I still make sure I teach all the kids classes, and bring those guys up. And then we've got, I mean, a slew of instructors at Abaya that are very experienced, and then all the different disciplines like Ryan Potter and Peter Campbell, and Charlene and Levi and Cody, and all these guys that have been
yeah.
around forever,
Been around
that help us
forever. Those
teach.
are definitely names everybody knows.
Yeah,
Not going to
exactly.
say, actually, I'm going to take that back because there's so many new people in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community now. No offense, John, but I'm sure there's people that don't even know who you are. They don't even know who I
Oh, for
am.
sure. Yeah,
But that's
yeah,
how
yeah,
it's evolved, right? Like you meet
yeah.
a 20-year-old purple belt at a club and I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm like, oh man, so do I. I remember the Abaya tournaments. What's that?
Yeah,
That's
for
why
sure.
that's why history
Yeah,
is so important, right? I
yeah.
feel I'm a huge advocate for history, martial arts history, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And
Hmm.
it's funny because when I was running Bushido Kai all those years, and especially when we had Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu there, I was busy training other martial arts that I really had an
Yeah.
interest in. And then after COVID and we shut the club down and all that stuff, and I reopened, now my full focus is on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for the last
Yeah.
4 years. So
Nice.
I'm like that geeky Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu purple belt. It's like, oh man, I gotta look up the next move. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, jujitsu is just so vast, man. Even as a black belt, a lot of times I just feel like a white belt.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
learning new things, or I run into someone that shows me something I've never seen, or it's just constant. It
it
never seems like
evolves
you're even getting
constantly.
constantly. I just never feel like I'm even getting close to the goalpost, and that's what keeps it interesting and keeps it exciting. But it's funny you say that because I used to feel like I knew everybody on the jiu-jitsu scene, especially running the tournaments and write the brackets out
Yeah,
manually and all that. I seen everybody, and now, yeah, I feel honestly quite disconnected from the jiu-jitsu scene. I don't go to all the tournaments anymore like I used to, and that. But my focus is on MMA, and I'm starting to really,
sure, of
I'm
course.
much more connected to that scene now, and but still involved with jiu-jitsu, especially at the gym level. Um, in my own training. So
Yeah. Well, with 103 black belts in the province, you can't know everyone now, right? I mean, there's a whole
yeah,
bunch on that list that I don't even know. And some of them I like, I do because they've been around forever. And then there's people that just they moved here. And anyway, it's amazing. So do you follow any of the tournaments, the local Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? No, sorry, the tournament scene in the States, IBJJF and who's on top, and you don't worry about any
I
of that.
don't follow any of that. I
Cool.
follow MMA. I do
Yeah.
watch a lot of different promotions for MMA. Half of it's for watching the fights. Like I'm an MMA fan first and foremost, man.
Yeah, me too.
I got into all this in the first place because I wanted to do MMA. It wasn't because I wanted to do jujitsu.
Interesting.
Like jujitsu was part of it, but I mean, I started boxing, like I said, before I ever did that. I still box just as much as I do jujitsu, and kickboxing and everything else just came into play so I could do MMA. My original goal was to fight, and now my goal is to promote fighting and keep building it and keep bringing up fighters in my own school and everything else. So I love jujitsu, I love boxing, kickboxing, wrestling, judo. I love it all.
Yeah,
But the ultimate for me is mixed martial arts and true fighting. So
it's the best. Yeah,
yeah,
totally agree. So, finishing up, when do you have spare time and what do you do? I know you like fishing, hunting.
I make time for fishing as much as I
Yeah,
possibly can. The
yeah,
season's kicked off again here now. I've had the boat out a couple times, and it's just ah man, I just always like being outdoors since I was a little kid, and I work hard, so every now and then I can take a day off and just go hit the lake. And now once the kids are out of school for the summer, we'll spend more time on the water and things like
right.
that. But yeah, that's it, man. If I
Yeah,
get time, I'm outdoors fishing and doing stuff. So I do
awesome.
woodworking. I've got a whole shop here in my garage, and I do, yeah, basically
That's
just
awesome.
keep busy all the time, man. Always got projects going on. And,
So you're keeping
that's it.
busy, you're still training, you're promoting MMA. Obviously, Fight League Atlantic's coming up at the Dartmouth Sportsplex, which is it's great. I mean, it's great to be there. And do you remember
Yeah, it's
Phoenix
amazing.
Fight Promotion? Do you remember that
I
name?
sure do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was Scott
They
McLean
were
put
at the
on
Dartmouth
Phoenix.
Sportsplex.
He was, and I remember Rowan fought there once,
Yeah.
back in the day, and won his fight. But yeah, that was Scott's promotion, man. He really stuck his neck out putting that promotion together and the amount of money it cost,
Oh, for sure.
to get TJ into the UFC, and it worked. His gamble and his just skill as a coach and promoter paid off. But I remember him telling me like he had to remortgage his house to put on those shows, and
Wow.
it's a big deal. And it's not as bad now, but back in the day, you couldn't have any amateurs, so you're paying all pro fighters. You're bringing all these guys in, and that's a lot of the expenses, those purses and travel and that. So now we're fortunate we have an amateur scene as well as a pro scene, and the amateurs look just phenomenal as well. So that's been a big part of how we've been able to develop. If there was only pro fights now, it would be exponentially more difficult. So
Yeah.
yeah, Phoenix Fights and ECC and all these guys that just paved the way for where we are now, and the Athletic Commission for just developing the rule sets and everything else. It's been massive, and we've seen so much growth because like it's been fully involved in MMA here now for 18 years or whatever. So
Yeah. Well, you guys are growing it like just phenomenal, and it's getting bigger all the time. And I know people are so looking forward to all these events. And man, it's just awesome, John. I want to thank you for doing everything you're doing for not only just martial arts, but obviously MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, everything you've done. And yeah, I got to find it in the book that I'm trying to work on. And we're going to have section on tournaments. So I might write you again just to get some dates, when you started
Yeah,
tournaments and stuff.
anytime.
And I review these videos I did, especially with Mike Kitston and Chuck Sproul, like the guys that have been around forever. There's so
Oh,
much
geez.
history. And people will forget history. Some people are not even into it, but I think it's important because, 10, 20 years down the road, it's good that they look back and realize people like you who, were the pioneers for some of this stuff. So it's without question.
Oh, thank you, man.
All
Nice to
right.
be lumped
So
into that group.
anything else in closing statements you want to add? You're good.
No closing statements, man. I got nothing
It's all
really
good.
else to
Well, it's
say.
a beautiful day out there,
Yeah,
and I'm sure it's nice down your way.
it is.
And
It's sunny.
I'm sure you want to get out and definitely enjoy it. So,
I appreciate it, Ray. I hope
all
my
right.
answers weren't too convoluted, man, and
No,
all
man,
over the place. But
I fly by the seat of my pants with these interviews. So I just doing them. I'm honestly just doing them for fun. So I'll
that's great.
officially end it. We can chat for a minute or two and I'll let you go. Okay,
Sounds
guys. So
good.
that was me, the gray-haired guy in Gee with the great John Foster. And yeah, don't forget FLA is coming up in June at the Dartmouth Sportsplex. Can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
It's
Okay.
gonna be huge.